Hi guys, thank you for joining me today. My name is Kafaya. I'm a community learning specialist at DoSpace, and I would be instructing or working with you guys today for our Scratch session. So, this is DoSpace After School Coded session, and we would get started in a little bit. Awesome. Thank you for being here with me today. As we have in the past 2 weeks, we will be continuing our lesson with Scratch today. And for those of us who aren't very familiar with Scratch, Scratch is a block-based visual programming language website that is targeted primarily at children or people who are beginning to code. I feel like anyone at any age can learn Scratch. It's super easy and fun. Okay, so users of Sprite can create online projects using a block-like interface. So another fun thing about Scratch is that you get to share after you created an account. You're able to save your games or activities as you create them, and then you can choose whether or not you want to share them with your friends, or you guys can collaborate on games and build games off of what each other has done. So, just a quick recap of our two previous lessons. Our first Scratch lesson in this, our first Scratch lesson was the ball bounce game, where we built our game from scratch. And how this game worked was, if you remember, once we had the ball bounce all over the screen, and every time you clicked on the ball, you got a point. And we also set our high score to 10. So every time you clicked on the ball as many times as you got to 10, you would get a congratulatory screen where you're a winner. And yeah, so we learned to add variables and increase our points. And we also learned to change the screen or change backdrop. And last week, just very seasonally, we built our Catch the Apple game where we had the ball drop from random positions from the tree, and we had our ball that we programmed to work alongside our mouse or trackpad. That way we're able to move to different areas of the screen to collect our apples that fell from random positions on the screen. So for today, we have a very exciting maze game planned. I don't know if any of you guys have gone to any of the mazes around town now, but I have. So I guess this is me trying to build a fun activity that I had in real life. So what we're going to do is build our Scratch game, but instead of using our mouse today, we're going to program our keyboard to control the sprite. So last time we controlled our bowl sprite with the mouse and trackpad, but this time we're going to be using our arrows, the up, down, left, and right arrows to navigate our sprites through the maze. Sounds like fun, right? Just a little bit more detail about the game so you know what you're getting into for today. We're going to build the layout of our game using the line tool. And after you've added a sprite of your choice, it could be the Scratch cat, it could be a boy or girl, a cat, a dog, or a ball, or anything you choose to go through your maze with. And then we're going to attempt to switch our background after the target is reached. So, at the end of this activity, just as a good way to refresh your memory on the past two activities that we had, I'm going to give you guys a challenge. So I hope you stay till the end to figure out what the challenge is. So let's get started. So I want you all to go onto the scratch.mit.edu website. That's where we will be making magic today. That's where we would be creating our game. So once you get to the scratch.mit.edu website, I want you to click on the create icon that's right next to the Scratch logo. So right here, I want you to click on create. And when you do that, it's going to bring you to a screen that looks like this. So come along with me and let's see what we can do today. So the first thing to do is to take out all of this fun information, and we're also going to say bye-bye to the cat unless you're choosing to use the cat to navigate through your maze. So I'm going to say bye-bye. And another thing that's very important that we need to do is to name our game. This helps you refer back to your game after you have maybe build other games, and you need to find the maze game that you built in October. So a good way to make sure that you can always refer back to this game is to give it a name. So I'm going to call it the maze game. So right there at the top where you have the Scratch logo, you see something that looks like a ball. Then we have file, we have edit, and right here there's a light bulb and tutorials. And then there's a little box here that probably says untitled. So what we're going to do is give our game a title. I'm sure you guys know this routine by now because we did it twice before. So I'm going to call mine the maze game. Awesome, and when you're done, we can just get started. So for now, I'm just gonna go ahead and select my maze, my sprite that I want to walk through my maze for me. So I'm just gonna go with the boring ball like I always do, just because, but I'm sure you guys are super fun and you're going to have a more exciting sprite. So have fun with it and let me know in the chat what sprite you chose to use for today's activity. Okay? I'll give you a second so you can give your activity a name. The maze game is what I named mine. And you can also choose a sprite that you want to use for today's activity. Okay? Awesome! I'm back. Okay. So, the first thing to do is to select your sprite, which of course I have done. We're gonna come back to the size of our sprite. I think it needs to become smaller so we can get through our maze, but that's me moving too far ahead. So now we're going to go into the backdrop business. So because we're building our maze today, we wouldn't be selecting or choosing a backdrop from the various backdrops that Scratch has. We're going to make our own. So right here, you should see something that says backdrops 1, and it should be pretty blank, like empty. I want you to click on that. And after you do, you would see that in the top corner your ball isn't showing anymore, because if I click on my ball, you can see whatever sprite I'm working on or I'm putting a code under. You can see it right here in the top corner, but I want to build my maze first. So I'm going to click on this right here that says backdrops 1, which is pretty empty and it should be blank. And after you do that, you would go in here. There's like 3 labels at the top of the page, right under the Scratch logo. It says code, backdrops, and sound. So I'm going to click right here in the middle because this is what lets me build a backdrop or create a backdrop of my own. And since this is the maze activity, we're going to be building our maze. Okay, so to get started, I'm going to go in here and select my line tool. And the fun thing about this is every line that I draw, it would reflect here in the corner in my display page. So that's fun, right? So now the first thing I'm going to do is build the layout of my maze. I need something like a container to hold my maze so you don't just keep running out. So to do that, I have selected my line tool and I will be going down. I'm going to draw somewhat of a rectangle but my rectangle is going to, let me make that thicker. Okay, I think that's thick enough. Okay, I'm selecting my line tool again, and I'm going to just build my outline. So, and I'm going to go down. But remember, there needs to be an entrance for your maze. So make sure to leave just enough space for your sprite to have an entryway into your maze. So I'll just leave this much space for my ball to get into my maze later. Is everyone following along? Let me know if you have any questions in the chat. I'll be more than happy to answer it. So now I'm going to go into my maze and draw as many lines as I can, just to make my maze look as fun or as creative as it can be. So I'm just using my line tool and being as creative as I think I can in this short period. And I'm going to draw a maze. Okay. So let me go here. Remember, we want our maze to have a starting point and a finishing point. So that is what I'm doing, just having fun, building a maze of my choice. I'm just being so quiet because I'm trying to concentrate on my maze. I hope that you guys are having as much fun as I am. I'm just using my line tool to build my maze. Something that looks good enough to pass as my maze. Okay, do something here. I'm just building my maze, trying to have fun with it. I hope that you guys are having somewhat of a good time building your maze. Make sure that no matter how creative you get, try to make sure that you have at least a path that would serve as the start and the finish of your maze, right? Because you don't want to be stuck inside the maze. That's like a nightmare. Okay. Let's see. I'm using my line tool to draw an outline for my maze. see, what more can I do? How's everyone's maze looking? Okay, I think this is a good stopping point, maybe? Yes. So now that I have my maze done, I'm going to go on to the next step, which is to reduce the size of my ball to try to make it fit into my maze. So right now my ball is at 100 and I'm going to take it down to 50 just to test it out. Okay, I think that's a good enough size. So I'm back to working on my backdrops. And now it's a good point to mark the ending point of my maze, right? So this is where you enter, this is the start, and I want my finish point to be somewhere here. So either here or here. I think inside here would be perfect. So to do that, I'm going to go in here and select my square tool. That's what it looks like. And I would go in here and draw a good enough rectangle or square, just something to fit into the space that I have. So I'm going to give my fill a color. Let's do blue. And I'm going to take out the outline. So no outline, right? So this is what my maze looks like. And I can make this a bit bigger so it fits into the space is right here. Awesome. And now that I have this, remember your maze doesn't look anything like mine, but that's the fun part of this activity, is that we're able to build anything with our imagination. So now that we've done the first backdrop, we want to make sure that we point our ball in the right direction. So I'm going to go back to click on my ball and go back into the coding label. And now I'm going to give my sprite, the ball, some instructions on what direction to go. So now I would go into my events tab. Remember how I said we're using our arrows for today? So now I would use the block that says when the up arrow is clicked, and I would go ahead and take 4 of that, because 4 of this block, because that's what I need. So click, drag, and place, click, drag, and place. So up arrow, down arrow, right arrow, and left arrow. Awesome. So the next thing to do is to tell them what direction to point in. So when I have my up arrow, I want it to point in the direction of 0, which is right up, pointing up. I'm going to do the same thing for my down arrow, and I'll do the same thing for my right arrow, and I'll do the same thing for my left arrow, making sure that I use this to point in what direction that I want. So now that we told it to point, we also need it to move. So how do I make it move? It's by adding the block of code that makes my sprite move. So that would be move 10 steps. Repeat the same process for every arrow. So let's see. Awesome. So now we can go ahead and test it. Let's see if our sprite is going to move. As you can see, That is awesome. It works. Great. But this is a bit awkward, right? The yellow ball goes right on top of the maze, and that's not fun. That's not how a maze works. Like, you're not supposed to be able to get over the line. So in order to fix that, we're going to go back into our code, and let me minimize this. I'm going to go back into my code, and everything looks like it's working the way it should, except that my ball is going over the line, and I don't want that. So I'm going to go in here in the events tab. So when my green flag is clicked, I know that my game is starting. I want to make sure that my ball always comes back to this position right here. So if you see, when I move the ball, the direction changes in the X and Y axis just right below it here, right? So I want to make sure to take note of this directions of this position. So negative 197 and negative 154. So I'm going to go into my motions tab and look for a block of code that can help me do that, which is right here. Go to X and Y at these positions. I'm going to put that right below my when the green flag is clicked block. And then I need the help of my loop to make sure that we're trying to make sure the ball doesn't go over the line, right? So we want to tell it that if my ball is touching the color or if it's touching the line, I want it to bounce back. So I'll go into grab my forever block, put that right here, and then I need a condition. So I'm going to look for my if block right here, my if block. If, put that inside of my forever block, and I'll go into the sensing tab because that's where I can get the blocks that have to do with touching. So right here where it says touching color, so if touching color, and I'm going to change this color to match the color that's right here for my if touching. I want to make sure that it catches all of my colors. Okay, cool. So if touching color black, what I just did right now was to use the pen tool right here, the color picker tool, to make sure I get the exact color on my maze. So if touching color black, which is the color of our lines, if your maze is maybe blue or yellow, using the color picker tool would help you pick the exact color on your maze. So and I want you to remember that because we're going to use this same step just in a moment. So if touching color black, I want you to back up. So remember how here we use the positive, we use 10 for moving forward. We're going to use negative 10 just so that it bounces back right here. So I'm going to just change this to negative 10. So it moves back. If 10 is for going forward, negative 10 would be for bouncing back. So let's try that out right now. So you see, oopsie, that's not working because I haven't clicked on my green flag. So let's test that. I'm clicking on my green flag. You can see that my ball is back in the position as we set it. So let me do that again. When the green flag is clicked, it goes back to the starting point of my maze. And every time that it touches the line, as you can see, it bounces back. See? And that is awesome. It's working. It doesn't go over the lines anymore. So see? Oh, okay. Awesome. So up to this step, I hope that you're testing your code. It's working. For me, at least. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do now, before we use the same, technically the same block that we used for this step, we're going to do the same thing. But before we do that, because we're going to create an illusion that the color disappears every time that the ball touches the color blue, because right now, let me see if I get through the maze and my ball goes through the maze. Oops. My ball goes through the maze just to touch the color. Oopsie. Let me make my ball a bit smaller. Okay. My ball goes through the maze just trying to get to the color blue, but nothing happens. Can you see? So what I'm going to do is, okay. So what I'm going to do is try to create the illusion that the ball disappears, that the color disappears every time that I click on the, every time that my ball touches the blue box. So to do that, I'm going to click back on my backdrops and go in here, and now I'm going to duplicate. So in order to get this, all I have to do is click on my backdrop right here in the left corner. I'm going to click and click on duplicate. And now I have two of the same backdrop. So now it's backdrop 1 and backdrop 2 for my two mazes, right? So I'm going to go ahead and click on backdrop 2, right? And I'm going to edit it and remove the blue box. And in order to do that, because I use the square tool, I'm just going to click on that and erase the entire box. Another thing that you can do, if maybe you painted on the blue, you can just use your eraser tool right here, and it would take out the piece that you do not want, like this. See? So I'm just gonna take out the blue box from backdrop 2, and now I have two backdrops, right? Okay, so let's go back to our code. Click on my ball again, and remember how I said to take note of how we did the lines and making the ball bounce back? We're going to use the same system for making our backdrop switch. So now I'm going to go into the controls tab and grab my if block again. So if, to give it a condition, and that goes inside my forever loop. So if touching, back into the sensing tab, and I'm going to select touching color and put that right there. And right now I would use my color picker tool to make sure to get the exact shade of blue that I want, right, like this. So if touching color blue, what do I want to happen? If touching color blue, I want to switch my backdrop to backdrop 2. See? Okay, let me give everyone a second to catch up to where I am. Let's see if you have any questions, you can maybe refer to what my code looks like to fix your errors if you have any. But if not, you can just ask me whatever question that you have in the chat box below. Okay? Let's take a few minutes to get up to this stage, and then I want you guys to test your code, or test what we've been building so far to see if it works the way that you want it to. Okay? So we started by selecting our sprite. Then we built our maze using the line tool. And then we programmed the ball to work with our arrows on our keyboard. So for the up arrow, I have it pointing up. For the down arrow, I have it pointing down. For the right arrow, it is pointing to the right. And for the left arrow, it is pointing to the left. And I also added the move 10 steps block right below that to make sure that it moves. I don't just want it to point in a direction, I want it to take a few steps forward just so there's some movement, right? And after we did that, we went ahead to program our code, our ball, to have a starting point. After the green flag is clicked, we always want our ball to go to the starting point of our maze. And we noted the X and Y coordinates for that. And we used the go to X and Y block to make that possible. That's why we have that right under when the green flag is clicked. And then we went ahead to add our forever block, and inside our forever block, a process that we want to be repetitive every time that you play the game is that we do not want our ball, our sprite to go over the lines. So we give it a condition that if the ball is touching color black, which is the color of our maze, we want it to move back by 10 steps. So that way it gives you a bouncing illusion. So every time that your ball touches the line of the maze, it doesn't go over, it just bounces back, which is awesome. And then we also added another condition to our loop, which marks the end of the game, where if my backdrop, if my ball or whichever sprite you have, if it touches the color blue to mark the stopping point of our game, we want it to disappear. We want the color to disappear as soon as we touch it. So that way it switches my backdrop back to backdrop number 2. So is everyone up to that point? I'll give us a few minutes so everyone can catch up with me and be on the same point that I am, and then we are going to go from there. I'm paying close attention to the chat, so if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. I'll be more than happy to help you guys figure out your game. Okay? Now is a good time for us to test out what we have, right? So I'm going to go here and oopsie, I didn't click on the green flag. That's why my game isn't working right. So I'm clicking on my green flag now and see, my ball is bouncing back. It's not going over the line. So this is me navigating through my maze, trying to get to the blue box. Let's see how that goes. Did it work? Come on. This is the moment of truth. Oops. Why? Okay. That is an issue, so I'm going to fix that and reduce it to 45. Okay. This is what we have now. My ball can successfully go through. Let's see if that fixed it. Let's start over. Okay, so now I'm trying to go through my maze, making sure to avoid the line because it only makes my ball bounce back. Okay. going through my maze. And now, yay. Why am I stuck here? Does anyone know what we can do to fix this problem? Let's go back to the drawing board. So now I'm going to go back to my maze and click on my backdrop. There's many options, but the option that I choose to use to fix that problem is to move this part of, yeah, I think that should work. I just moved this down a little bit, and I'm gonna go back to testing that. Everything else looks fine. Let me stop and start again. Okay. Navigating through my maze. All I want is for the blue box to disappear. I hope I'm able to do that in 3, 2, 1. Yay! So it worked. Well, that's it. That is the end. We were able to make our backdrop switch from backdrop 1 to backdrop 2. Should I show you again? Right here, I'm navigating through my maze, just going and going and going and going. Trying to find my way to the finish line. Avoiding the line so I just don't keep bouncing. And now it disappears. So here's my challenge for you guys ahead of our next session. I want someone to tell me how I'm programming my code in a way that every time that my green flag is clicked, I want my backdrop to switch to the first one with the blue box, because this is backdrop 2. We know that all the code that we have here so far, it works. So what do I have to add to my code to make it switch back to backdrop 1 every time that I click on my green flag? So this is where we're ending today. I'm giving you guys a little quick assignment. And I hope that you figure it out. I look forward to hearing about how you do, or the various ways that you attempt to solve that problem. And yeah, I hope to see you guys in the next session. Bye. I'll hang around for like 2 more minutes in case if anyone has any questions. I'll be more than happy to answer that for you. If not, this is where we say bye-bye for today. Have a good one. Don't forget, if you have any questions after now, please feel free to email me at hello@dospace.org. I will be more than happy to answer any questions. Or if you do something cool with your maze and you want to show me, please feel free to send it to me at hello@dospace.org. Have a good day.